Hello, and welcome to this lesson on Internet Basics. I'm Neil Washington. I'm the Computer Resource Assistant at the Trenton Area Soup Kitchen. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about basic terminology, functionality, and navigation of the Internet. So after this lesson, you will understand basic Internet terminology, know how to open an Internet browser to access the Internet, and understand search techniques to find websites and information. So the internet and web, we hear both of these words a lot, and in a lot of ways they're really interchangeable. But just to go over them, the internet is a system of interconnected global computer networks that allow people to share information. And the web is a system of online documents that are linked together, like a spider web. You can see the graphical representations underneath the definitions. So one way to think about the internet and the web are it's basically like a giant library you can access with your computer. It's not just a library of books, it's a library of websites and web pages and information. So just like when you walk into a library, you'll have access to all the books in the library. When you access the internet, you'll have access to all the websites and web pages that are put on the internet. And you can think about the web as just the way they're linked together. Like there's little strands that go between all the different pages and websites on the internet. If it was at a library and you're thinking of physical books, it'd be like a spider made a web between all those books, and by being on one book, you could jump to all the books that it was linked together via the web. I hope that wasn't too confusing. It's not very important to know exact definitions, just the general idea behind them, and that's that the internet and the web is a way to access information online. A web browser is a program that allows you to view websites and navigate between them using hyperlinks. And also you can use applications like Google Drive and Google Mail or Yahoo Mail. You're probably familiar with Facebook. That's an application on your phone. So the browsers that we're using or that are most popular nowadays are, it's actually not Internet Explorer, it should be Microsoft Edge here, but Microsoft Edge or Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Google Chrome, and Safari. Chances are, if you have a computer, you're using one of these already. This might be what you're actually using right now to watch this YouTube video. They're popular for a reason. Their performance is good, their security is good, their speed is good. So I would recommend using one of those 4 browsers. So let's talk about the definitions of website and web page for a moment. These 2 words are also somewhat interchangeable, and it's not extremely important to memorize the definitions or know the difference between the 2, but just understand the basic ideas, which is that a website is a collection of web pages that provide information about a business group, organization, or person. Here in the image below the definition, you can see the Trenton Area Soup Kitchen website. So it's the home page that from the home page you'll be able to access all the individual smaller web pages, which are electronic documents with text, images, and other links that is accessed by clicking a hyperlink from the results list in a web browser. So one way to access a web page, as I mentioned, is through search results, which we're going to go into in a future slide. So you search for whatever topic you're interested in, there'll be results, and then from the results, which are web pages, and then you'll be able to select which web page you want to go to. I mentioned this in the previous slide, but a home page is the page of a website that appears first when someone clicks on the site's hyperlink in his or her web browser results list. In this example, the search was City of Elgin, and the first result was cityofelgin.org, which is the home page for the city. And when it was clicked on, it brought the user to the home page of the City of Elgin. Nowadays, the cloud's used a lot. It's helpful in many different ways. The cloud is a term used to describe web-based applications and or files that are stored or on a shared remote server and is accessible to users through a login. So when we say files, we can either do it on the computer that you're using, which is helpful in a way because then they'll always be accessible when you're using that computer. Or there are options nowadays to log into a cloud service like Google Docs or Facebook, which means that whenever you can log in from other computers and the files will still be there. So it's really helpful in a way, especially if you're used to working between different computers. You don't have to worry about transferring the files somehow, because if you save them to the cloud, you just have to log into whatever service you save them under, and then you'll be able to find them there. The address bar is in the red rectangle box in the image here, and in this example we have www.alscafe.com typed into the address bar. So the address bar is where you can type in the address of the website or web page if you know it, rather than searching to try to find something if you already know the web address of what you're looking for. For example, the web address of the Trenton Area Soup Kitchen is trentonsoupkitchen.org. So if you knew that, you wouldn't have to search for Trenton Soup Kitchen. You would just type trentonsoupkitchen.org and it would bring you to our webpage. The search box is similar to an address bar. Actually, in most cases nowadays, it's the same thing. Most browsers have the option to search using the address bar box. So search box and address bar are also pretty interchangeable nowadays. So you use it by searching for whatever you're trying to look for on the web. If you don't know the address, if you didn't know the address of the Trenton Soup Kitchen was trentonsoupkitchen.org, you would just type Trenton Soup Kitchen. In this example, it looks like the user's looking for information on the Lincoln Park Zoo. So they're searching Lincoln Park Zoo here. So they just type it in, they click enter, and then there will be results for the Lincoln Park Zoo or whatever the user searches for. And as I mentioned, what's actually called is the Omnibox when you use the address bar, both to search or to write an address. So you can do both things nowadays in most web browsers. Tabs are very helpful. They're used to open a new web page without closing the current one and navigate back and forth between them. In the picture that's shown here, we have 3 different tabs. We have, looks like a email address here, and then a home page for the Gale Borden Public Library, and then google.com is the third one. If you needed to open up a new tab, you would click on the little curved rectangle to the right of Google. So it's helpful because if you're doing multiple things at the same time, like we all tend to do nowadays, you don't have to use one tab to do it. You can just click between the tabs, and then it will be easier to go back and forth between whatever you're using each tab for. We're going to talk about buttons next. Buttons are used to direct the web browser to perform specific functions. So they're helpful. They're like shortcuts to do actions, and it makes navigating a web page easier. You don't have to remember as much. You don't have to remember the last web address of the last page you're at. You just hit back and it'll bring you back to it. So that the back button is used to return the previous screen. The forward button is used to return to the screen that appeared before you hit the back button. Stop is used to stop a web page from loading when it's taking too long or you realize you entered incorrect information into the short search box. Refresh is used to search for new content on the current page. Refresh is pretty helpful when it didn't load the first time or it's slow loading. Sometimes you can just hit refresh and then it will load, the page will load correctly then. Bookmarks are helpful mainly because you don't have to remember the web address if you can just bookmark it, and then you'll be able to look in the future. In the future, you can just click on the bookmark to go back to that web page rather than typing in the address again or searching to find it. And the home button is used to return to the home page. We already talked about web addresses when we talked about putting them into the address bar, but there are some important details to talk about with the web address. It has to be the correct combination of letters, numbers, and or characters to reach a particular website. There can't be any spelling errors. It's called, another name for the web address is the URL, which is the Uniform Resource Locator, which means it's the one way to find that website. They will never contain any spaces. They'll have to be spelled correctly. They typically begin with www, http, or https. But you don't have to type those first characters in now. It's pretty much implied when you type a web address. So you could type www.trentonsoupkitchen.org and it would work, but you could just as well type trentonsoupkitchen.org and it will work as well, because the browser just figures out what needs to be in front and it will go to the correct website. Here's one example: is www.ssa.gov. Domains are the last few letters of the address after the period or dot, and it will usually give a user an indicator about the type of site they're visiting. Let's go back to the example of Trenton Soup Kitchen. Our web address is www.trentonsoupkitchen.org. So after the second dot at the end of kitchen, we have org, which means we're a nonprofit organization. You've probably heard .com before, maybe .edu or .gov, and we'll go over which one each one means. .com is a commercial business or company. .org are nonprofit organizations. .gov are government agencies. .info are informational sites. .edu are educational institutions. .net are internet service providers. And .mil are United States military branch websites. Search engines are really helpful. They're one of the basic ways we navigate the internet, or through doing online searches. It'd be impossible to remember all those web addresses, so the easier way to find information is to perform a web search to find whatever you're looking for. You can use them in many different ways for news, maps, weather, sports, finding pretty much any information. It's like a giant index or catalog of information that you can just search, and it will give you results on that topic that you search for. So let's go into a few quick tips for searching. They're more advanced, but I'll just talk about them here, and if you want to practice doing some more advanced search techniques, you can always refer to this slide for the information. If you put what you're searching for in quotation marks, it will only return results that contain the words in the order that are in the quotation marks. So Illinois State Fair, now it will only return results that have Illinois State Fair together like that. It won't return results that have Fair Illinois State or State Illinois Fair. So it's helpful when you know you want the phrase together the way it's put in the quotation marks. Connectors are ways to guarantee that it's going to contain both words in it. So when you put Chicago and events like that, if you didn't have the end in there, it will mostly return results that have Chicago and events, but some of the results might just be Chicago or just be events. and putting the N in there just guarantees that it's going to contain both words. We're going to skip that one. We'll talk about internet safety now and some best practices to use when you're using the internet. Most people are familiar with the idea of cyber criminals and cybersecurity, that there could be ways people are getting your information online or stealing your information. So it is something to be aware of and be cautious about. Just know that the internet by itself isn't evil. It's a very helpful resource that if you use correctly, you'll be okay. But just like anything, you have to be on the lookout for what might go wrong or what somebody might be trying to do to you. So the best practices are to keep you and your family safe when using the internet. Be cautious of entering personal information into websites that are not secure. So the way you know a website is secure is that it will have the little lock symbol in the front of it, which you can see here in front of Fifth Third Bank, or in the address we have HTTPS. The S means secure, so both of those things, the S or the lock symbol, are ways to know that it's okay to be entering your information. It's secure. That website is secure, so you're able to trust it to enter your information into it. If you're filling out a form or application that you're putting your name and your birthday or other information, look for those things first. And if you don't see one of those, the S or the lock, I wouldn't recommend for you to enter your information into that website. Another best practice is to use antivirus software, which is going to protect your computers from viruses or malware, which are just things that kind of infect your computer. They might steal some data or slow it down, or they're just negative things to happen to the computer. So you want to prevent them, and the way you do it is by using antivirus software. Which comes installed on most computers nowadays. So you might not actually need to install it. You want to make sure that you do have it though and that it's running. There'll be a separate lesson that goes more into depth with antivirus software, but it is one of the ways that you protect yourself when using the internet. And then another best practice that keeps you safe when using the internet is to keep your programs and software applications updated. A lot of updates are happening automatically. Sometimes there will be updates that appear on the screen, like what we're seeing here, and it will ask you if you want to update. And pretty much in every case, you're going to want to update, either for the program or the software or the operating system. There are always updates coming out, and that's because programs and developers are updating their software and programs to be less vulnerable to the latest viruses and malware that are out there. So it's like a constant battle where viruses and malware are updating, and to stay ahead of it, we should be updating our programs and operating systems. So most of us use passwords for so many different websites now. And the best practice is to use strong passwords. You're going to want to try to make them 7 characters, a mix of uppercase and lowercase letters, contain at least one number, contain a symbol, like an exclamation point or the @ symbol. The best practice is to have them unique to each website, not reuse them for multiple websites. That way, if someone finds out your password for a website, they can't access it on whatever other website you were using that password for. Yeah, so it's tough. I know pretty much everybody struggles with passwords because there's so many of them nowadays, and if you make them more complicated, they're harder to remember. I recommend just trying to find a method that works for you, that you feel is safe, and do your best with it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just try to keep your password to yourself. Don't make it completely obvious, and try to come up with different ones to the best of your abilities. Here's an example of a strong one because it's got uppercase and lowercase letters. It's got a number in there, the 2, and it's got a symbol at the end, the exclamation point. OnlineGuard.gov is a good feature to protect your computer and be smart. Online sections just shows some additional resources for exploration after class is over. All right, let's complete some activities. Let's go to the questions. Thank you for coming.